Well, why don't we go ahead and get started this morning. I'll ask Brian to lead us in the invocation, and Meg, if you'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards.
Father God, we are honored to be here today to serve the people of Oklahoma City, Lord. I just ask that you be with the families who lost loved ones yesterday, that you will be with those who have been injured, and all the families and all the people that are facing a monumental task of cleanup. Father, we ask for wisdom beyond our own abilities in the way to deal with not only this, but also the budget issues that we're facing. Lord, be with our public safety personnel as they're out helping the community this morning. And we pray that everything that we do will honor you. In your name I pray, amen.
Please face the flag and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll call the council meeting to order and then recess the council meeting. We had intended to convene as the Finance Committee today, but because of the events of last night, we have decided not to have police and fire present their budgets today, and I'll ask the city manager how we can reschedule those.
Right. The police and fire need to be focused on the tornado recovery, and so they will not be with us this morning. What I'm recommending is that we do one of those presentations at the end of the council meeting next week, and the other presentation will add to the group of departmental presentations we do in 2 weeks from today.
Okay. Well, then we'll reconvene the council meeting. We're on item 3 of the council agenda. We have item 3A deals with a grant of $100,000. We need to take care of that this morning. All right. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes on 3A. Passed unanimously. Item 4A begins a series of votes. This is introducing an item that will be set for a public hearing. It has to do with some changes of the municipal code on, I guess, 4 different areas?
There's 4 ordinance with us this morning. A few years ago, we had a company come in by the name of Maximus that did a fee evaluation study of a number of our fees. And we were behind, and we're not getting full cost recovery on a number of areas. And amongst our recommendations was we should each year address a certain amount of fees. And so that's our plan, is to do that. So we have a number of fees that we're looking at this year. We're not, obviously revenue is an issue, but it's also an issue to keep our fees current and do them in a more frequent, less drastic adjustments as we go forward. So we've got a number this year that are being presented today that affect the Development Center, and Bob Tiener's here this morning to go over them with us.
Basically, I have 2 ordinances to talk about. First ordinance is an amendment to Chapter 33 dealing with residential yard parking. The current ordinance states front yard parking. We need to change that to residential. Since 1986, when it was originally adopted, we've also prohibited parking in the side yard and the rear yard on grass. So that clears up that, makes it just residential parking. And then the second is currently there's a $10 fine for the ticket in parking on the grass. We've determined that it's not an effective deterrent. There is currently a $50 second fine, second offense, but when our inspectors are in the field, they really don't have the ability to make that determination if it's in a second offense on that vehicle or not. So we're really recommending that the fee be set at $50 and eliminate the second offense. So each ticket would be $50. This is a table showing the surrounding communities and what they currently charge. So we feel like that we're in line with what they're doing.
Bob, could I ask a question about that? How are these? They're all covered by the same rules that we are, all of these surrounding communities. How do they justify a fee of that $100 or $65 or $144 for a second offense? Based on if we the fees aren't, I mean the fines aren't based on cost, are they?
No, it's they're not based on cost, but what we figured out is that a $10 is not a deterrent.
$10 doesn't work. I just don't understand why we are only going to 50. I mean, next to people not fixing broken windows in their house and watching a neighborhood go down for that reason, front yard parking is the first sign, I think, that neighborhoods are getting ready to go down the toilet. And I think to only go to $50 is not enough.
I would agree. And as you all know, that I have been part of a very, challenging initiative in reference to part of my ward as it relates to just a total disrespect of the community by individuals who will park on the sidewalk, will park on the yards, have absolutely no respect for whatever ordinance we have now. And I have begged since day one of this whole issue of trying to revitalize Northeast 23rd Street and other parts of Northeast Oklahoma City, is that, and every Saturday you can drive up and down Northeast 23rd Street and you can see just a ton of cars that's parked on the sidewalks. There's no enforcement by anyone. And I agree with Councilman White. If we're going to do something, let's do something that has a real meaningful effect. It's kind of amazing that if we give the surrounding communities of what their offenses are, and Norman and Tulsa are the only two cities that have anything close to $60 or $50. If Midwest City is charging $105 and Moore is charging $100 and Edmond is charging $100, and I guarantee you when you drive in those communities, in those particular municipalities, you'll see a drastic difference in reference to the communities themselves as far as the complete aesthetics on the outside. And I just think that if we're going to do this, we need to do something that has some teeth in it that really puts a deterrent on the individual, either it's the property owner or the person that owns the vehicle. This needs to stop.
When we looked at it and recommended the $50 fee, it was the fine. It was really, our thinking was it hadn't been changed since 1986. And that's why we want an incremental increase there. We're receptive to.
That's a policy decision by council. We just have to be happy to implement any fee level that the council deems is appropriate.
Well, it's just being introduced today, so we could amend it today, or we could wait a couple of weeks and amend it then. So we don't have to decide today. I'm hearing that we think the fine ought to be increased from this suggestion. Brian?
Why does, under Tulsa's second offense, why is it not applicable?
My understanding is they don't track second offenses,
Okay.
so it's just a $60 ticket anytime there's a violation.
Bob, can we track second offenses? Your code enforcement officer just can't do it in the field, but it can be done if through the court records, can it?
It can be. We work with Hanson, and part of the problem with us breaking out the second offense out of these types of fines is that it's done by an address in Hanson, so we would have to research to determine if it was a second offense on a car or not. It could be a second offense at a property, but it could be a different car.
Yeah. But Meg and then Gary.
Just a quick question, Bob. We're talking about this definition being related to residential yard parking. And when Councilman Kelly talks about 23rd Street and folks parked on the sidewalks, are those residential, Skip, or is that commercial, and do we cover both of these in this issue?
Well, there's a few residential, but most of it is commercial. But besides that, it's just not 23rd Street, and I'm sure code enforcement will concur that there is just an abundance of people who park their vehicles on the yards.
Will we capture all those folks with these changes?
There's a couple. This ordinance would allow, if the property is zoned commercially but used residentially, this would still apply. If it's commercially and there's parking on the sidewalk, that's a separate issue that I know that Charles has been looking at there on 23rd Street. So they're both covered. This is really just for residential parking in either a residentially zoned property or commercially zoned property that hasn't been converted to commercial use.
What is the current fine for the commercial offenses? Do we?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Gary?
What does the ordinance speak to on how quick you can write a second ticket? I mean, is it per day? Could they literally go back each day and write another citation?
We could go back and write one each day. Now, I don't recall any restriction on doing multiple tickets. You know, we can do one, and if you don't move it, we can do another. I don't believe there's any restriction on the time frame there. This is different than a zoning violation that would have to go through to the municipal counselor's office, and we'd send it to courts, and they really don't like us doing multiple citations, but this is a parking ticket. So.
If the issue is we're citing the property for having this done, not the vehicle, then I don't know that it matters whether it's a second offense or not, tracking a second offense. You just go out and write the citation for the parking issue, and whatever time we give them to get it cleared off, and you go back out, you write it again. I mean, it's not necessarily a second issue thing to me.
So the citation is issued to the vehicle or to the
It's like a parking ticket to the vehicle.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Well, one more. Mine is we ought to, our fine ought to be as high or higher as anybody's. I mean, to have ours being the lowest, even after we increase it by fivefold, is just too low. I mean, we need to be as high as anybody on the list, in my opinion. It is a blight on neighborhoods and on the quality of life any place you see it. This is one way to stop it.
Well, do we want to come up with a number today, or do we want to just introduce it today and know we can do this in a couple of weeks?
We might wait to get some input from the public, see how they feel about it. If we get a big reaction at $50, maybe we need to stop there and incrementally increase it over time.
Well, I was here in 1986 when we set it at $10. If our increments are going to be every 24 years, we need to bust it today.
Well, that's probably a little long, but I do think maybe the incremental approach might be.
Well, why don't we just introduce it today and we'll all give it some thought, and if staff has any additional input, they can provide it to us, but we'll revisit this on a future meeting. We need a motion.
Move it.
Second.
All right, cast your votes for voting on item 4A. Passed unanimously. 4B, Bob?
The next ordinance amendment is fee increases to address our basically development services, primary services that we provide. Code enforcement we just talked about, development centers, the building permit process, and subdivision zoning are the rezoning cases you see every Tuesday, and the platting. In 2007, Maximus came in, established did a detailed study of our cost to provide the services. Basically, their system, we used it for code enforcement, development services, and zoning and subdivision for those fees, and the proposed fees is to recover the cost of the service.
The fees as they are proposed, will they recover the full cost of the service?
The fees that are proposed with the development center, the building permits, those are intended to cover the full cost. The fees with the weed abatement and zoning and subdivision, we felt that going to the full cost wasn't reasonable, so we're kind of putting those in an incremental amount.
But not for 24 years, as my colleague.
No. The fees for subdivision and zoning were changed in 2007. We haven't had a fee increase on the building permits since 2003. So basically for this slide, for the code enforcement, weeds and grass, we're proposing to go to $250. The Maximus study allowed up to $300. So, and then building permits, this is the one we're trying to cover the cost of the service. And we've had some feedback from the from the industry, and they like the service they're getting now. For us to maintain that service, we have to increase the fees.
As a part of the budget presentation, Development Services in this area did not take the cuts that the 12% cut that the others didn't, because we've got a fee to come back in and to make them whole in that area. And what we're doing and what we're saying is that's the service level that the development community wants, and they're willing to pay for that. Not uniformly, but that's the overall feedback that we're getting.
If this is approved, when will it go into effect?
July
1.
1st.
July 1st, so it would have an impact on our fiscal,
It's directly tied to this is directly tied to the budget.
which would protect the development center essentially from cuts.
That's correct, sir.
Jim, since this study, have we done one annual adjustment
We've done adjustments every year since the study's been in place.
since
Various ones.
2007?
Very-
Because that was the idea. We'd do it we'd look on an annual basis.
That's correct.
All right. Ready to vote on B? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item C, Bob.
Bob's is an item C. Item C is an issue that's came before the River Trust. It has an issue to do with point of sale fees associated with special events on the river. And right now we have differential fees that are on the river for the area around the boathouse as opposed to other basins. And the case in point is it's drag boat races, which would like to be down on the eastern basin, but cannot be because of the construction that's going on. So we're asking them to go up into the May Basin, and when they go up to the May Basin, they have a higher fee structure. So what we're doing is bringing the May Basin in line with the eastern basin at this time for that facility. It's been to the River Trust, and several River trustees are here today.
I'll just comment that, as Jim phrased, there was some concern that the May Basin was at a financial disadvantage to do events because of the point of sale issue. We did we changed the point of sale issue in the eastern basin, or actually just in the boathouse area, I think, to accommodate all those events that wanted to go down there. Well, we have seen that there is a way to do events in the May Basin that's successful. We thought it was appropriate to change that to the same structure also. The middle basin wasn't included in this simply because it includes Wiley Post Park. I think if we want to discuss doing Wiley Post Park, then we're going to have to really study it a little more, because there's a lot of things that go on in Wiley Post not related to the river. And I think that Parks would agree that we'd have to look at that very carefully if we wanted to do something in the western basin. So, but this did come out of a recommendation of the Land Use Committee.
You want to make a motion on C, Gary?
I'll move it.
All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item D, I understand we do need executive session.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Move it. All right. Cast your votes. Item's moved. Item E, I understand we do need executive session.
Yes, sir.
Move it. Cast your votes. Moves. And item F, I understand we do need executive session.
Yes, sir.
Right. All right. Second. And that item is also moved to executive session. Items from council. Gary, anything this morning?
Well, to state the obvious, the storms last night, our thoughts go out to those people that were affected by the storm, and of course our prayers go out to those families that have lost loved ones or injured. In Oklahoma it's springtime, and unfortunately we deal with these more than we want to, but I think it appears that the response from all the communities and certainly the county and the unincorporated areas was as best as could hope for, and again, our thoughts go out, prayers go out to those people affected by it.
All right. Sam? Larry?
I'd just like to encourage people who maybe enjoy bowling. The River Park Neighborhood Association is having their first bowl-a-thon to raise funds to buy supplies to enable Catholic youth who are coming from across the country in June and July to rehab some houses in Oklahoma City. The bowl-a-thon will be held at the bowling alley at the Meridian, South Meridian, and Southwest 29th this Saturday at noon, and they can get information on the River Park website. Thank you, Your Honor.
Pete?
Just to further Gary's comments about the storm damage in southeast Oklahoma City. I think we're really not going to be able to assess it until this morning. There was a good job started, and I appreciate so much the responses of the public safety folks in the last 24 hours out there have been very, very good. I was out of town, did not get back until after it already happened, but the power's already coming back on in some areas, although there are power lines down. Roads are still blocked, but there are crews out there with chainsaws cutting the trees out of the way, and it's so far I think we've done a really great job of responding to a real tragedy for a lot of folks.
Brian?
Well, I'll second Gary and Pete's comments, as well as appreciate the OCPD for their awards banquet. One of the memorial service that was held on Friday, I thought it was very nice that the Dallas Police Department actually sent their honor guard down to assist in that service. I thought that was very thoughtful of them and appreciated that. And also I wanted to just send my condolences to the family of Mark Shannon, a longtime radio personality here in Oklahoma City who passed away this last weekend after a 10-year battle with leukemia. And so my prayers are with his family and his friends.
Okay. Meg?
Yeah, I really think, just as a quick follow-on, I was so proud last night to be a citizen of this great community. And when you saw everybody working together, the fire and the police officers and our nonprofit community, the Red Cross and Salvation Army, and it was, for a tragic situation, it was really an outstanding response, and we see this all the time, but important to recognize everybody for their efforts. On a much lighter note, I guess Miller Neighborhood is having their house tour Saturday afternoon from 11 to 4, and I'd encourage folks that enjoy historic neighborhoods to come down and visit the Miller Neighborhood.
All right. Skip? Pat?
Just a comment, follow up on what my colleagues have said about the response last night. I think one of the most interesting things was the press conference where city officials and other relief workers gave their assessment of their efforts to deal with the disaster that hit Oklahoma City. The aura of confidence and competence that came through was really exceptional. I think all the people who were out there from the city and relief agencies that were involved deserve a pat on the back, because they indicated that they were there and they were helping and actually doing something, which is not always the case when the government gets involved in these kind of things. So I think it was a real tribute to the kind of people we have in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Make a couple of comments. First of all, we should show our gratitude to the news media for the early warnings that the television coverage provides our citizens. No question it saved lives yesterday. And some very sharp and quick-thinking employees at Love's that got 75 to 80 people into the cooler. And my understanding is that those employees couldn't fit in, so they had to lay down outside the door and hold the door shut, and that took a direct hit, and that all 75 to 80 people, however many they were, all walked out and unscathed. And obviously, a great example of training and just high-quality employees that they had employed at the right time. So lives were saved all over, and we regret that the two people have died, and we were praying for the two people that are in critical condition this morning. Anything else?
Quick city manager report.
Okay.
Just want to point out that we did receive the sales tax check for May on Friday, and for the first time in about 14 or 15 months, we've had a positive check. It was both over target and over last year's collections. Now, last year's collections were down, so we need to take that with a grain of salt. And 1 month does not a trend make. But that being said, it's good to get a positive check that's coming in. It'll be interesting to see if it can be a trend that continues as we go forward. So.
All right. We have executive session. We'll be back.